Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Digital Marketing Therapy. Thank you so much for being here. This episode was a super fun one to record. I recorded it with Natalie Idhe, and I will give you her bio here in just a second. But, it's all about supporting other people in building out their passion. And while she helps working moms leave their corporate lives, there's a lot of lessons here for all you dads out there too. So we do talk a lot about working moms, but I think it's so true for everyone. It's all about building your passion and finding what you love to do and making it work for you and your family. So before we get into the episode, let me tell you a little bit about Natalie. Natalie is a wife, a mom, a dog mom, and the host of the Working Mom Mindset podcast. She's also a former corporate ladder climber who had big dreams of the corner office, six figures, and running the regional facility she'd been working for more than 10 years, right? The good old American dream. After a lot of corporate drama, sleepless nights, and ugly crying, Natalie decided she needed something else, and that something else wasn't going to be another corporate job. She wanted to help other working moms somehow. So she took to Pinterest and Google and absorbed all the information she could about starting her own business, which is how her blog was born. She created her exit plan, a 1-year deadline to leave the corporate world by August 2019, and she left 6 months sooner, you guys. Running her business has been a roller coaster of emotions, but she wouldn't go back to the corporate world for anything. And now, Natalie dedicates her time to helping moms who are finding they are no longer a good fit for the corporate world to develop an exit plan, create their own profitable online business so they can continue to be the provider, be present for their kids, and enjoy life on their terms. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear this episode. It's a little bit longer than some of the other ones we do, but I promise you it's a goodie. But before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by our upcoming 5-day challenge. We're doing it all via email, so you don't have to worry about showing up for live video or what have you. We'll still be there to support you through it all, but we're going to give you 5 tips and strategies for getting more traffic to your website that will lead to more sales and converting customers, because it's not just about traffic, right? It's about the right traffic. So I'm really excited about the 5 strategies we're going to share with you, and it all kicks off on September 23rd. So you have just a few days to get registered and we'll get started, and I'm super excited about it. So to sign up, all you have to do is go to thefirstclick.net/challenge, and you can get signed up and check your email on the 23rd for all the goodies to be delivered right to you. Let's get into it. You're listening to the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Bedell-Mulhern, and each week I bring you tips from myself and other experts, as well as hot seats with small business owners and entrepreneurs to demystify digital marketing and get you on your way to generating more leads and growing your business. I am so excited to have Natalie here, and you just heard her amazing introduction. And usually when I have guest experts and people on, I give them a little bit of time to kind of give their backstory and kind of their passion behind their business. But Natalie, for you, this is kind of one and the same. Kind of what you experience in the corporate world has led you to what you're doing now. And I think that's so amazing.
Yes.
So welcome, first of all.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. And I guess I just kind of wanted to kick it off with a lot of people are super frustrated with their jobs, don't really know maybe what they want to do, how they can turn it into a business, how they can go off on their own. So what was kind of the catalyst for you in making that decision to kind of jump away from corporate, start your own business?
Okay. That's a big question. So I actually was the person who never thought I would leave corporate. Life happened and I just jumped into the, office worker type role. And it evolved from there into like a corporate career. And the company that I left a couple years ago, probably about 18 months ago, I literally thought I was going to be retiring from there. At the time that I left, I was 3 years away from a corner office and a 6-figure salary.
Wow.
And what had led me to make the decision that I just couldn't do it anymore, it was kind of was kind of a straw that broke the camel's back. So it was a culmination of things. And then it was just like the one last thing. And it was ugly.
Mhm.
It started out with just increased stress little by little. And I have always been, and I say that now, I'm a recovering type A. But
I
I've
love that.
always been, yeah, I've always been a type A personality. So I've always been like in control. I've got this. I'll fix all the problems. Like I can do anything, right? So all these little stressors and all these little things that kept building up and building up and building up, I was like, I got it. I got it. I got it. But in doing that, in, having everything, I actually started turning into somebody that I didn't recognize anymore. I was coming home and I was literally losing it on my kids. And not in a, need to call child services kind of way, but
Right.
like,
No, I can completely agree with that. I mean, that was the same thing for me. It was the stress of the job and everything that was going on there. When I came home, it just got unleashed on my family. I was not patient. I was angry.
yes.
I was frustrated. I was stressed out, and I just wasn't present.
Exactly. And, I remember one of the memories that sticks out the most was my daughter was in preschool and she was in aftercare, which was it was in the Park District building. So it was right down the hall from her preschool room. And I still had to go grab my son from daycare, but I had to go grab her first. And her backpack and everything from her backpack, so her lunch bag and any like artsy craftsy stuff they did in preschool, or even in aftercare, it was all scattered all over the room. And she was probably 4 years old at the time. And I walked in and I was like, okay, honey, let's go. And mind you, there's only like maybe 4 other kids left that haven't been picked up yet. And there's like 3 or 4 counselors. And when I say counselors, they're probably in their late teens, early 20s. And she was running around and I was like, okay, honey, let's go. Like, I'm tired. Let's go. We still got to get your brother. Let's go. And she brings me her backpack and it's empty. And I'm like, well, where's your lunch? Over there. Well, where's your cup? Over there. And I lost my mind in front of these little kids and in front of these counselors. And I was like, why can't you keep your stuff together? And she's 4 years old and she doesn't know what she did wrong. And I hurried and I grabbed all her stuff and I threw it in her backpack and I grabbed her and I cried the whole way out and I cried the whole way in the car to pick up my son. And I was like, I can't believe I just did that. And that was like the beginning of the end for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's 4 years old. She can't tell time. Cause I was, you should have known I was coming. No, she shouldn't have. She's 4 years old.
Right.
Like she doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
She just knows she plays until she sees me and then we go. So that, like I said, was kind of the beginning of the end for me. And the stress just increased and increased and increased. And part of that stress was because I had a new boss. And it was somebody they hired from outside the company, which isn't typical for that position. And I didn't know how to handle this person.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to handle somebody who didn't trust me because she came in not realizing that I'd had double-digit years experience there. And she didn't need to tell me what to do. And that, in fact, I did part of her job while they were looking to fill her position, So I allowed that to kind of fester inside of me and it just made everything miserable for everybody. I was stressed out. I was trying to control as much as I could. And in trying to control as much as I could, I just made everything worse.
Yeah. And that's a big lesson too. Like, I think the more, it's kind of like the sand analogy, right? Like the tighter you hold on to the sand, the faster it slips through your fingers.
Yes.
And if you can just relax and let it sit in your hand, then you can hold more of it.
Exactly.
But when you start to lose control, you want to hold control to the things that you know. And I see that so many times with the people I work with in marketing specifically, because there is no control because everything changes so fast. You want to like, you know, control everything you can. So let me ask you this. When you were at that point in your job, were you already starting to work on something on the side, or did you leave that job and then start kind of what you're working on now?
So here's how the end happened. It was August of 2017, and I had been coming home ugly crying for quite a long time. And when I say a long time, I mean like months of, snot, mascara, eyeliner, whole 9 yards, like just gross. And it was August of 2017, and the kids went to bed, and I sat on the couch with my husband, and I looked at him and I said, I need to do something. I can't be here anymore. And I know I can't go to another corporate position because all the companies are operating the same way. Like all the companies around here are operating the same way. Like the companies that are successful, and I actually wrote this in my exit letter to the company, was you look at the companies like Facebook and Google and mainly the Silicon Valley type companies, right? And they are doing these amazing things and taking care of their employees first. And their employees have no problem providing the right kind of service to their customers. And the companies that aren't at that level, whether you look at it dollar wise or status wise, they're trying to, again, it's this control thing. They're trying to control their employees to a point, and they're not making the money that they want to make. And it's this like vicious cycle. So I told him, I can't work here anymore. And I know going to another corporation is going to be the same thing, because it happened at your last job. It happened we see it happening at the job that you're at now. Other people I talk to that are in other companies, they're experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing. I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm not going to go on medication like I was 15 years ago. I'm not, I'm not going to have an ulcer. I'm not going to do this anymore. And so he said, okay, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I have no idea. But by August of 2018, I need to leave there. So that was the beginning of my exit plan. I had no idea how it was going to work.
Yeah.
But that was the beginning of my exit plan. So August 2017, I told him in August 2018, I need to be gone from the corporate environment. And he agreed with me. And because he saw the effect it was having on me. I was doing things like, once he would come home from work, because he always got home a little bit later than me, like, 20, 30 minutes later. As soon as he would walk in the door, I would go upstairs and go to bed.
Wow.
And it wasn't even that, it was like depression and anxiety and the stress from the day. And I just couldn't handle my kids. And I didn't want to be that person anymore. So he's like, okay, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. So I started, I went to Google.
Trusty Google.
And I went to Pinterest, and I was like, how to make money from home. Right. And all these things come up. And I'm like, okay, but I don't want to do an MLM. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I just don't want to do it. Like, I've done them in the past, and I know I'm good at it. If it's a product that I believe in, I just don't want to do that. So what can I do? What am I good at? And I'm like, well, I'm a writer. I've already published two books. No, I published one book at the time, and I had one written and I hadn't published it yet. And I was like, I want to do something with my writing. Like, I want to help people with my writing. And so all these things started coming up of like how to make money blogging. And I was like, okay, blogging is writing. So yeah, let's jump in here and see what this pool kind of feels like.
Yeah.
And I took a challenge. I took somebody's 5-day challenge, and it was a very, I'm not putting anybody's names out there, but there's certain people just really don't know how to do challenges, and they don't know how to support their audience very well, because I asked a question and the answer was, well, read the paper. And I went, well, I did. And I still have a question. Like, I have a question, like, answer me.
Right. But that's, I mean, as much as I hate to say it, the good and the bad experiences that you have with all of those things, challenges or what have you, as you're getting out and trying to figure out what you want to do, I mean, help you to know how to do it better yourself.
Exactly. And so I, jumped in and I was very confused by WordPress specifically. And I was like, you know what? I did like a free Weebly website one time. So let me see what options they have for like a low cost website. I know how to do that. So I went over to Weebly and I created my website over there. And I was like, okay, I'm going to help working moms because that's where I'm struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who I want to help. And so I started writing about just different things my husband and I were going through. And of course, they had to be very vague as far as, talking about work and things like that. And because my husband and I don't have a quote unquote tribe or village close by. My husband's family is roughly 100 miles away. And my family is just not in the picture. So it's just him and I and 2 kids.
Right.
And when we started out, it was him and I, 2 kids, 4 dogs and a cat.
Wow. It's a lot.
Yeah. So needless to say, I was, really close to losing my mind. But writing this blog actually helped me, even though I didn't know how to monetize it yet. And I was still trying to figure that out. It helped me be able to better handle situations at work.
Was it kind of like your therapy? Like you were getting kind of all of the stuff out. And so then you were releasing it in a way that, would turn to be productive. But
exactly.
You weren't holding it in with you when you left for work.
Exactly. And it also made me question myself with how I handled situations, because anytime something would come up, the question I would ask would be, okay, if I'm going to write about this, I have to handle it the right way so that I can tell other people, this is how I handled it and this might work for you.
That's so interesting.
Right? Yeah. Like I can't even believe that I made that connection, but it actually really helped me manage the, all the discontentment I had with my corporate job.
Yeah.
And so during this whole time, my husband and I were trying to figure out the finances of everything. Like, how are we going to do it on one salary? Because I made almost double what he was making. So we were like, okay, how are we going to do this? So we were, we knew we were both getting bonuses. We knew how much those bonuses were. We knew there was 401k money available if we needed to use that. We knew all these things. And so what ended up happening was I left 6 months sooner than I had planned.
Wow.
Yeah. And part of that decision was because the stress level did get worse. And while I was handling it semi well compared to how I'd handled it previously, I didn't want to be witness to what it was going to do to me if I continued, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I want to touch on 2 things that you said. One, going back to when you said, I just got on Google, I got on Pinterest, I just figured it out. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do, but then I just kept learning. I love that so much because it seems to me like you didn't really worry too much about how you got it done. You just said, I know how to do this, so I'm going to do that. And then I know how to do this, so I'm going to do that. Instead of taking in all of the things and feeling frustrated and like, okay, well, I don't know if I can make money off a blog, but I like to write. I'm going to do that. And I think that's such a good lesson for my listeners and for people, because if you just get started, right? Don't worry about all of the things, just get started doing something, because you'll get no results if you do nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that I loved.
Yeah, go ahead. No, it was, and that wasn't typical of me, because I'm like, historically, I've always been an overthinker. You know, I always question everything and, is this really the right thing? And I mean, not just as an example, it took me 2 years to leave my ex-husband because I overthought it that much. Like,
Right.
But when like this stuff started happening and it was like, boom, no, I'm making a change. Like I can't live like this anymore.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to take 2 years to decide again.
Yeah. And so that comes back to the second point that I wanted to bring up, and that you left your job 6 months earlier than you anticipated. And when that happened, finances aside, did you feel like you had done enough in the 6 months prior to be able to kind of fully launch the business that you wanted? Or were you still feeling like at that point you weren't quite ready for that, but you didn't really have a choice?
Yes.
Got it.
So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, it's earlier than we planned. And we have, we have this coming in, but if I don't have to focus 40 or 50 hours a week on this job, and I can put that 40 hours a week to my stuff, I can make it profitable before we run out of this bonus money. Right. So it was like, finances aside, even though it wasn't profitable within that first 6 months yet, because I was only doing it when I could. I mean, when you're working 40, 50 hours a week and then you have kids and all that kind of stuff, it's really hard to find time to, blog and learn how to blog and, go ahead and use Google and YouTube to figure out how to fix whatever you just messed up on your website.
So true.
So it was one of those things like, if I take the time I'm using now on the stuff that I hate doing and working for somebody else, and I put it towards the stuff that I like doing, I'll be profitable in no time.
Yeah.
Is kind of the thought that I had. Like finances aside, even though I'm not profitable yet, I will be if I can concentrate on it more. The problem came in when my son finished preschool 2 weeks before my daughter finished kindergarten. And so I really didn't know the struggle of working from home with a child.
Yeah.
Wants your attention all the time.
Yeah. Well, and now so what you do is help working moms that either have a full-time stay-at-home or work from home gig, or working moms that are trying to transition out of corporate into either a full-time or they're working on their side hustle, right?
Yes.
So
yes. Correct.
What is the biggest excuse that you hear from moms about why they haven't left their job yet?
It is very much money. And when I say money, it's not only the paycheck, but it's the benefits. So it's the insurance.
Yeah.
And it's the 401k. It's the retirement accounts. And the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that a job, like working for somebody else, gives you a false sense of security because they can let you go at any time. You can make the decision at any time that you don't like what's happening and you can leave. So it's not guaranteed. They can hire new management that makes your life miserable. And you're like, forget this, I'm out. Because I almost walked out at least half a dozen times in in the time that this woman was my boss.
Well, and I think it's also to the control of your income. So, at a certain point, you're going to hit that ceiling where you can't really do much more.
Right.
And if you're running your own business and you put everything you have into it and you just keep trying and going and moving, then the sky is the limit as far as the income that you can create for yourself.
Exactly. And that's such a hard concept to really embrace when you've been in the corporate environment for so long and you're in that, I go to work from 8 to 5 or whatever your hours are. I go to work from 8 to 5 and I get a paycheck every whatever day you get paid, and I pay my bills, and these are the days the bills are due, and this is what we do with the kids on the weekend. And when you're stuck in that kind of I don't know. I mean, to me, it was all very monotonous. And although it looked like everything was fine and happy from a third party perspective, it was killing me,
Yeah.
And I know that feeling. And I know the feeling of being talked down to after you've been told that, essentially and I'm not saying this out of ego because this was the portrayal that happened. It was essentially, I was the golden child. It was like, Natalie's moved up this much, this fast, and she's the go-to for almost everybody, for almost everything. And she can train anybody on anything. And she's going to have this position when this person we hired, that we knew she was only going to be here for 5 years, she's going to, have this position when this person retires. And we already know that, to like a total 180 and being told that my knowledge and my passion and my values no longer mattered. And I needed to keep my mouth shut if I wanted my next promotion.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of women who are dealing with that, and maybe not those exact words, but the feeling that comes along with that feeling of being small, of feeling forgotten, or feeling like you're just a number. And it's a huge, it's my purpose. Like, without a doubt, I have this, like right now, just talking about it, I feel like I'm glowing. I have this like excited feeling inside me. If I can talk to 1 million women and tell them that they have so much knowledge and so much potential and so much, and they can do whatever they wanted to do with anything they love doing, and they didn't have to go in and report to somebody and be talked down to and not utilize their talents and skills the way they were meant to. Like, if I can talk to that many women all the time, like, my life would be so full.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really important as part of your story that you talk about is the whole, it's not, I think we often hear these, kind of Cinderella stories of these women, and not just women, but just people in general who have had this corporate job. And then I, just kind of started this side hustle because I like to make blankets. And then now all of a sudden I have $1 million blanket business. It's like that, like this. I think we hear this story all the time. And so then for those of us who maybe like you didn't necessarily know what you wanted to do, you just knew you wanted to take control of your life and your destiny, and you figured it out. I think that's really impactful and important because you've created something successful, but it wasn't this perfectly laid out path of, oh, I've always had this passion to do X. And so I just, push came to shove. So I just decided to try it and it worked.
Right.
I had to leave my job because it wasn't working for me as a whole human being. And I just started to dig deep into myself at that time and figure out what I wanted to do and what I liked to do and what I wasn't willing to do.
Absolutely. And it has seriously evolved so much. So it started out with me publishing the book that I wrote 5 years prior and self-publishing it and promoting that and learning how to promote that. Not that I did it right, but I did it. And then moving on to, okay, now I'm going to blog. Okay. Now in addition to blogging and helping other working moms, I really love clean eating. And I think there's a stigma around it that it's always a diet and things like that. But like, I'm always eating cake and cookies and stuff because I make, my kids' teachers joke, just a little sidebar, that like they're the only kids who can come to school with quote unquote junk food, like cookies and cupcakes and stuff, because I probably made it out of zucchini.
Right. Totally.
So, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do like maybe a cooking blog, because once you have your health in check, and this was another big part of it for me, was I'd lost 30 pounds before this woman started. And then after I stressed out after she started and I couldn't deal anymore, and that was all on me, I gained 30 pounds and then I lost it again. And then I gained it again. And so having a healthy lifestyle, like fitness and nutrition, was so important to me. And it helped me when I was, on the wagon, we'll say, it helped me to deal with the work stuff a little better. And I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do like some kind of cooking blog, because I make stuff all the time. And, sometimes I use other people's recipes, but sometimes they taste like garbage and I make something on my own. Because I'm telling you, some of those healthy recipes out there, they taste like garbage.
Yeah.
And then I had 1 million people telling me that cooking blogs are overdone and I'm too late and it's such a saturated market and I need to do something else. and I was dumb and I listened. So I moved on to, okay, well, I'll continue just helping working moms just deal with work. And then I listened to people who said, well, but you're leaving your job, so why would anybody listen to you? And I'm like, okay. And I was dumb again. And I listened. I got to stop listening to people. Like, okay, so if anybody has anything to take away from this, stop listening to everybody else. Just do what you want to do.
And I think I have a very much an abundant perspective. Like there are plenty of people out there for everyone. And even if there are a million cooking blogs, there are probably 30 marketing agencies in my town alone. And my town is like 100,000 people, right? But I have my unique perspective on how I do it. I have the ideal customer that I want. I don't necessarily want all the same customers that all these other people are doing and getting. And, I feel comfortable in the situation that I have created for myself and where I'm going with my courses and membership and how I want to serve people. And so the people that are a good fit for me are going to get to me, hopefully, eventually over time. And my business is growing. But just because everybody else is doing it, it just means it almost just means you have to be a little bit more vulnerable and let your personality shine and really let people see who you are, because that's how people are gravitating. I know people in the online space selling all sorts of things that are making millions of dollars, and you would never know their name because they're not necessarily at the very top and they're still making millions.
Exactly. I'm like emphatically nodding my head over here because, because seriously, like there at the time when I first started, I didn't understand like abundance. I was listening to podcasts and I was getting all geared up. And that was the other thing that helped me through a lot of the corporate bureaucracy and drama and all that mess. And it was also the thing that kind of encouraged me to keep going with this idea of I want to work for myself was I just started listening to podcasts. Like I started with a couple that I didn't particularly care for, but they had interviews with people. And I was like, ooh, let me check out this person because they said they had a podcast. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And I think I have like 100 podcasts in my queue and I can't keep up with them. But I love them all, and that was part of it too, was that I had created this virtual support system of people I didn't even know that were like, no, they were telling you like, you can do this. Like you can deal with a shitty job and you can deal with, a job that you're not in love with anymore. And you can deal with, creating a business from the ground up, and you can, it's mindset. And I was just starting to get into that, but I didn't understand at that time the abundance thing. And I was very much looking for other people's approval on what I was doing. I was looking for people to go, yeah, Nat, that's a great idea. And nobody was saying that.
Well, it's interesting to me because your business is online, correct?
Yes.
And, my business, I do have one-on-one consulting, but largely it's online. And I still think even though it's such a big industry and we shop online all the time, it's like this whole explosion of online coaches and learning online after you've done the traditional college thing, right? Like I don't have a degree in marketing, but I became a really hungry learner because I know I needed to in order to continue to grow in the positions that I was in. But before I got to this, I think people still don't understand, how do you make money? Like, are you blogging? Oh, you're doing a YouTube channel. Like they don't understand how you can monetize it in a way that still creates the same experience for people as if you're working with them one-on-one in person. And that goes back to what you talked about way earlier with the initial challenge you did where you didn't feel like they were supporting their community, but done right, it can still feel like a really tight-knit group of people that are just as vulnerable and transparent within your community as they would be if you were working face to face.
Exactly. And the other thing with having an online business is, and I did a poll on my Facebook and on my Instagram, and I asked, like, when somebody tells you, when you hear the phrase online business, do you think, and I gave them two options, you can create something of your own and make money doing something you love? Or do you think you're getting roped into some kind of pyramid scheme? And overwhelmingly, the answer was people thought they were getting roped into something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so sad because the MLM, network marketing, whatever you want to call it, that's out there, it's not a bad thing. You know, there may be a few people who, you know, gave it kind of a bad name a long time ago, and everybody has this like stigma about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do an MLM, go ahead.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to do makeup, if you want to do, you know, food or leggings or jewelry or whatever it is, there's an MLM for everything. Go ahead. But there's a way to do it so that you're not reliant on the MLM. But if you have a passion, if you have something that you've always wanted to do, drawing, writing, you know, in having a, you know, I mean, 20 years ago, there wasn't a thing as a podcast, but like, if you like talking to people and you were always like, hey, I want to be like the next Oprah or something, you know, Sally Jesse or whatever, like you can start your own podcast now and reach those people that you want to help. And you can do that thing that you always wanted to do. And yes, there are ways to make money doing it. And you don't need to be concerned with the how, because there are people out there who can help you with the how.
100%.
You know?
And I, you know, there's people out there that are making tons of money teaching people how to do the things that they already do on a daily basis. Like you said, painting or, like arts and crafts with their kids or homeschool. I mean, like I think it's incredible how now more so than ever before you can create what you want and serve an audience because of the internet and because of online communities and technology. You can serve people in a very specific niche that you would never have been able to do before because you're limited by your geographic area. But I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you about then what is the number one kind of concern or issue that you hear or setback from moms who are working from home in kind of their hesitation to want to do that part of it?
What if it doesn't work?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what if I put all this time in it and I fail?
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did fail at a million different ways of doing what I'm doing right now, because it gives me the experience to tell them, so what if you do fail?
Right.
Like, so what? You know, like failure is a bogus concept, you know, and I love teachers and I wanted to be a teacher at one point. But the way our school systems are, and even the way our businesses are run, everything is done with a hard yes and a hard no.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, aside from math, right? And a little bit of science, even science isn't always a hard yes and a hard no. But aside from math, like life in general is a whole bunch of gray. It isn't a hard yes or a hard no. It's a whole lot of, well, it depends.
I know my clients love it when they ask me a question, I'm like, well,
yeah,
you know, because again, you know, there's only so much you can control. And you can't control what other people do. So you could have a wildly successful business and then all of a sudden things shift and change. Algorithms change, a new competitor comes to the market, whatever. You just have to kind of hold true to your path and keep going and refine. So, I mean, I'm with you there. We teach in marketing, it's all about testing.
Yeah.
Not failure.
Yeah. Exactly. And a mentor of mine, he used this example. He asked this question: is $1,000 a lot of money? And like my thought when he said it was like, well, it depends. Mm-hmm. And, you know, some people said yes, some people said no. And he was like, well, it depends, because if you're spending $1,000 on, you know, insert whatever, I don't know what example he used, but like, I'm thinking like, if you're spending $1,000 cash on a phone, because phones are so expensive now for no good reason. Just saying, that's a lot of money. You know, like to drop $1,000 on a piece of equipment, like a piece of tech that's going to be obsolete in like 18 months.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. But if somebody's selling you like a brand new, no strings attached, no problems Ferrari for $1,000, that's a really good deal. Whether you like Ferraris or not, that's a really good deal.
And I would look at it from a different perspective of, what are you spending to get that $1,000? So if you're in business and you spend $10 on advertising and it generates $1,000 in sales, that's pretty good.
Yes.
If you spend $900 to generate $1,000 in sales, then maybe it's not.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's all very much perspective. And so what if you do fail? So if it doesn't work and people aren't digging what you're putting down, tweak it, do something else. Like we're not, we're very complicated. Humans are very complicated creatures. I mean, we all like to do a whole lot of different things. I have never once in my 40 years on this planet met anybody who only ever liked to do one thing and one thing only.
Right.
You know, I mean, take my grandfather, for example, just quickly. He was a union pipe fitter. So he worked on heating and cooling systems. You know what else he did? He was a florist.
That's amazing.
Okay. Like, and then he wanted a farm.
Yep.
I mean, like, you know, we're not single-minded, single interest, single focused. So what if your cooking blog or your crochet YouTube channel or your, you know, whatever didn't work out? You like doing something. So you have two choices. Either change your messaging on that same thing if you're really dead set on doing that one thing, or do something else that you're interested in. And don't tell me that you're not interested in anything else, because that's a load of baloney.
So because I know you work with working moms, but I feel like, you know, it would be remiss to say there's a lot. My husband was a stay-at-home dad for a while, and maybe one day he will be again. So we don't want to exclude all of you,
of course,
out there, because it's a similar thing. But one of the other pieces is kind of that whole support thing that we've kind of talked about in a couple different ways. But do you find that a lot of the women that you work with kind of struggle with that selfish feeling of, you know, as a mom, we're supposed to nurture and, you know, we take care of everybody, and like sometimes quitting your job to do your own thing? For me, it felt very selfish for a while because, again, I'm home, my kids are here, but I'm shutting them out all the time, especially in the summer, you know, because it's like the same as if I was going to work, right? But it feels very different. So do you have any advice, or what kind of other things do you hear from other moms with regards to that?
It is. So that selfish factor does come in, and selfish has a really bad connotation. Selfish isn't always a bad thing. I mean, you know, you teach your kids to share, and yeah, that's great. But when it comes to you as a mom, right? Because let's be honest, as much as we love our spouses, right? Whether you're the husband or the wife, it doesn't matter. As much as we love our spouses, and we both, in our relationships, we both have this leadership role in our family. So then when we're doing something that's like, no, this is just me, I don't want you people around me right now. And it does sometimes, just because of what society puts on it, it does feel like wrong. And let me tell you, it's not. Because, and here's what I tell a lot of my clients is, if your child came to you when they were in their late 20s, 30s, whatever, and said, I am miserable. I come home every day crying. I sleep all the time. I'm always nervous. I'm getting migraines, and I know it's all job related. Would you tell them to just stick it out?
Right.
Or would you tell them, like, let's go like, if you need the help, let's get you some help, whatever help that is. Like, let's talk about it. If you need medical help, let's get you that, but let's get you out of that situation. What do you want to do? Do you want to go work for somebody else? Do you need to change industries? Do you need to just do a total 180 in your life? Like, you're going to want to help your kid if they came to you with those problems. So if you're having those problems, which all of those were my problems, right? It was like physically, mentally, and emotionally taking its toll on me. What example am I setting for them? That it's good to be miserable just for a paycheck, just so that we're financially comfortable?
Well, I think it doesn't even have to always be, I mean, an extreme case like what you experienced.
Oh, yeah.
I think too, that a lot of people feel that way, and a lot of people are in that situation. And I think a lot of people too are just not happy with, are just, maybe they're just making widgets all day, and that's just boring and not fulfilling. So I feel we all need to give ourselves a little grace and say we work in our life more than we do anything else. And that making money is great, but like, imagine if every day you could wake up doing something that you enjoy doing, and opening up that space in your mind and opening up that space in your heart and with your family, and being able to go out and have a life and a passion and make that what you do for a living. Like, that to me is super powerful.
Yeah,
and I don't think,
ultimate.
I don't think we give ourselves that freedom, because we make all the excuses like you've talked about before, like money, and I want to, have to be supportive for my family. We have to do, I don't know what it's going to be like working from home. Like, you make all of these things and waste all that energy that if you just put it into kind of like what you did with, I'm just going to try this and see what happens. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to learn that. And we're just going to see what works and not worry about the quote unquote word failure. What could you achieve, and how many people could you impact if you could do that?
Yeah. And the other thing I like to say is if you wouldn't do now what you're doing for a living, if you wouldn't do that for free, then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
That's great.
And let me tell you, and I didn't come up with that. I heard it somewhere, and I've, it's evolved in my verbiage. But let me tell you, working in manufacturing, controlling inventory and purchasing, I would never in my life do that for free.
Because that's what I was doing. To do that.
Yeah. Like, no, that is not something I would ever do for free. Yeah. Helping women realize that they're not stuck, helping women be able to continually provide financially for their family while still doing something they love, instead of going into a job every day that's totally frustrating and totally unfulfilling and giving you burnout and all these things that we experience. That is what lights me up. And let me tell you, I would not mind doing it for free. In fact, I did for a few months. I didn't get paid for a few months.
Yeah. I remember when I first started my business and was getting out and doing a lot of teaching and talking to people. And, I got yelled at by a mentor of mine and a couple of other people, because they're like, you need to start charging people. Like, you are giving away everything. Because I just loved it so much. I love talking about marketing. I love strategizing and problem solving for people. And so they would come up and ask me questions, and I just give it all to them. And they're like, stop doing that. You can do a 15-minute consultation, learn, give them some stuff, but then you need to charge for your services. So I totally love that you said that, because that is still a struggle for me at times, to not just want to give people
but it's
everything.
Because you're loving what you're doing and you're loving the people that you're helping, so that's a great mindset to have. Right. And me too. Like my husband, I was talking to somebody the other day, and it was actually somebody who I used to work with, and it was a man, and he has a family. And, I was helping him through some stuff, and my husband's looking at me going, dude, you need to charge him.
Yeah.
And I was like, but dude, he has the same boss that I had, and I want him to leave there now.
Yeah.
I want to give him all the information.
Yeah.
And I'm sure his wife was like, because I know his wife, and I'm sure she was like, man, Natalie's crazy, because your phone is blowing up. Because I'm like sending him links, and I'm giving him this information. I'm sending him voice memos. I'm like, this is everything you have to do. And don't forget this, and don't forget this, and don't forget this. And I'm so excited about it, because I want other people to feel that joy and that freedom. And I want them, like, I don't know, like I feel it right now when I'm talking, and I hope you and the audience can hear it as well. I'm excited when I talk to people about them doing something that's maybe not traditional, right? Not traditional work. It's something that actually lights them up, and showing them the potential of how they can monetize it and how they can support their family, and how, if you do it and you're loving it, then you're going to make money doing it, and you don't have to worry about that 401k or that insurance. Like, what if you can buy better insurance with the money you're making doing what you love doing than your company provides you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what if you can just log on to the marketplace and be like, boom, I'm buying the best insurance, and money's not an issue.
Yeah.
Or, hey, anybody have any posts on Facebook, and who has recommendations for a financial planner? I'm telling you, at least 10 people are going to reply to that question. And you can set up your meeting, go, I need to do these investment accounts, and I need to start investing here and there, and I want to make my money work for me. And like, you can do that. And those worries that you came to the table with originally of, what about my paycheck, and what about my 401k, and what about my benefits? None of that matters.
Yeah.
Because you're doing what you love, you're getting paid for it, and you're making bank. And it doesn't happen quickly. Like you were saying, like those people who seem to have done it overnight. No. It's either a fluke or they're lying.
Or because I think the biggest piece for me is everybody has their own network. So it depends on how you got to where you are. So like maybe you started this blanket company and it made a ton of money, but your job before that was creating really cool, high quality yarn. And so you already had a network of people that knew you from that business, so that when you transitioned, it was easy, right?
Yeah.
So it all just depends on, we forget about understanding who the audience was before somebody launched their business, because, I started with zero.
Yeah.
So I'm building.
So did I.
Right. And so if I expect to get there to $1 million business right away, like that's not realistic. So I really challenge people to take a look at what your business goals are. Like, what do you want? What do you have to have? What is like the minimum amount of money that you need to be making in order to pay the bills and kind of start the thing? And then what's kind of your goal of where you would like to be? And then like do your thing and don't compare yourself to everybody else, because you might only have $100,000 goal and the person you're comparing yourself to might have a $10 million goal. So
exactly.
You can't, their Facebook ad spending and their staff and their everything is going to be way scaled. There's no way you can compete with that. So don't even try emotionally. Like stay in your lane and figure out what it is that's going to complete you, make you happy and build you up and fuel you. And then go for that.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I heard that I implemented in my goal setting personally was, of course, your goals should be a little beyond what you can do, right? You need to stretch a little bit. You need to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. But to have a goal, especially when you're talking a financial goal, that's maybe you already know how having that money feels, right? Mm-hmm. So if you make $5,000 a month, maybe your goal for your business eventually, once you get out of the kind of startup phase, maybe your goal is $6,000 a month, because you already know how 5,000 feels. And if you set your goal to be $15,000 a month, right, you're going to stress yourself out. You're going to give yourself that anxiety. And then you're going to start questioning, maybe I should just go back to corporate. Maybe I should just find a job, work for somebody else. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. And you start second guessing yourself when you have goals that you don't quite know how it feels to achieve them. So a little bit outside your reach, but still within a realistic viewpoint.
Well, I think that's, kind of a great place to end this conversation. Lots of good stuff in this episode. I hope you guys all loved it and would love to hear your kind of feedback and takeaways. But Natalie, if people want to connect with you and learn more about what you do, how can they do that? And kind of what do you have coming up in your world?
Awesome. Thank you for asking. So, Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, it's at Natalie Idhe. And Facebook, I'm working on changing my page name, and that's a whole process with the Facebook piece. So it's Natalie Idhe, Mompreneur in the Making.
And we'll have these all linked up in the show notes as well.
And then my website is natalieidhe.net. So all those places you can find me. Also my podcast, The Working Mom Mindset, where we talk about mom life, working mom life, whether you work for somebody else or you're self-employed or you have a side hustle. We talk about all the things. So that's where everybody can find me. And I am offering a free one-on-one call with those who are interested in working with me, I can send you that link. So you can post it, because that's going to be leading into a membership program that
Awesome.
I'm going to be developing, so that no matter where you are in your journey of whether you have a side hustle or a full-time self-employed business, you can hop in and get the content you need and run with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story so authentically. And I know you're going to inspire a lot of our listeners out there. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sammy, for having me. I really liked having this chat with you.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you again to Natalie for joining me on this episode. It was such a fun conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And if you do love these podcasts, please, please, please make sure you subscribe wherever it is that you listen. And if you've heard of our podcast, but maybe you have another platform that you'd rather listen to us on, shoot us a message, because we're happy to make it easy for you. And if you screenshot you subscribing or reviewing our podcast and share it on Instagram using the hashtag DMT podcast, we'll send you a code so you can download our website redesign workbook for free. And that's a $47 value, you guys. The workbook walks you through everything that you need to know with regards to your website before you redesign it or design it. It walks you through how to create your sitemap, what platform is the best platform for you. Do you have all the branding elements you need? And so much more with worksheets and guides. So I'm giving that to you for free just for simply subscribing to my podcast. So make sure you share it on Instagram using the hashtag DMT podcast, and I can't wait to see all your photos. Till next week.